Welcome to Chicago's Bravest Stories. This episode brought to you by PSP Academy for your CPAT training. Follow us on social media, our Instagram and Facebook page at trainwithpsp.com. First of all, thank you guys for coming. I want to introduce our guests. We have Jimmy O'Connell, retired firefighter, start that again. Jimmy O'Connell, retired CFD paramedic Jesus Christ.
This is what happens when you go on 40 hours.
Hey, no more Brown.
And we can't do a fucking podcast.
This
all
thing right here
summer.
is going to help you
Mr.
out.
I'm busy all
Jimmy
summer.
was
Assistant Deputy Chief Paramedic.
Assistant Deputy
Get it
Chief
right.
Paramedic.
Well, as I'm saying it, I'm like,
ADC
how far do I
fee.
go into the description that people are going to understand?
Can you do my podcast?
All right, well, we have Jimmy O'Connell and Danny Bauman. Thank you guys for coming here. I tried to get through the introduction, but that didn't go very well because we're drinking whiskey in the studio right now. So we tried.
Some of us are.
Well, some of us are just beer drinkers, I guess, huh?
There you go.
So, yeah, thank you guys again. We'll start with you, Jimmy. Can you give us a little background?
Sure. Jim O'Connell, almost 37 and a half years on the fire department as a paramedic. Kind of climbed the ranks all the way up to assistant deputy chief. And I guess that entails running half the city's EMS for that 24-hour tour of duty.
I remember when you came up north, I was in Uptown, and I remember you were coming up, and I'd never met you, never even heard of you, and then I asked my partner Fred, I'm like, and he's like, you're going to love this guy. And then later on that night, you showed up, with, I think you met us up at Weiss Hospital. You had flip-flops on your t-shirt, and I was like, Fred, I don't know who this guy is, but some guy's getting out of a buggy, he's got flip-flops on, and he's like, oh yeah, that's your boss.
I have no recollection of the flip-flops.
I deny that statement.
For the record.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I guess things are going to be okay.
Yeah, I got talked into going to the north side by Tom Bailey, and who's just a great chief, great guy. And he said, he said, Jim, you know, I don't get along too well with a lot of people. He goes, but I only got a few years left, and I think we could do some really good things if I go to the west side and you're the boss. So why don't you think about coming up to the north side? And I had never been north of 39th Street.
So that's why you came up north?
That's why I came up north.
I don't think that many people actually know that story.
Yeah, it was strictly Tom Bailey, and they had moved Field Division South from where it was at 61's house, which was one of my favorite places in the world, to Engine 16's house, and it was not the same. So I was looking for a great house to be in for my last few years, and so was Tom, and so it worked out great. I got to spend so many great years at Engine 44's house. What a awesome place.
What year did you come on?
I came on St. Patrick's Day of 1980. So I came on the week after the strike ended in 1980.
How did the strike affect you coming on?
Oh, well, it was pretty brutal because, I was a 20-year-old kid, and every firehouse you walked into every morning, someone was saying, hey, look at this scab, or look at this new kid, and they assumed you worked the strike, and where I was working was the whole district was pretty much out on strike. So every day you'd walk in the firehouse and they'd look at you sideways, and then they'd say, in or out, and meaning did you work the strike, or come on after, or go out on strike, and I would say after, and they'd say, you're full of shit, and then I actually I met a friend of my father's, who Don Gepner from Engine 61, and every single day I would say, call Gep. You have to call Gep, and so they would get on the marshal line and call Engine 61 and say, this Jim O'Connell kid's over here, and he says he just got on the job now.
You had to be vouched for.
Every single day. That's amazing. Yeah. And they would feed you, and they wouldn't feed you until they got that verification.
Gepner, that's Grumper?
Don Gepner,
I know him, yeah.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was at 86's house when Marge was over there.
No, that's somebody else.
No,
this guy spent a whole career on 61.
Did he really, on 61?
Yeah. This is Gepner.
Gepner.
Don Gepner.
I think that's All right.
He got blown off a dumpster in about 1994. That was his last day on the fire department. He was standing on top of a dumpster, hosing it down, and poof,
No kidding.
Yeah, blew him right off the
Whoa.
dumpster.
So, Danny, tell us about your career. What year you come on? Come on.
I was going to get this big long silence and be like, yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Take
yeah,
another
it's-
sip of
it was
whiskey
about
and
that
tell us all
simple.
about your
Came
your
out in
career.
93, November 15th, or 16th, excuse me. We had a class of 12.
You came on
medics.
as a paramedic.
I came on as a paramedic, yeah. I became a paramedic in 83 and worked my way through college on the privates, working with my dad. And then I met a lady who was already on the job, and she's like, oh, you should, put your name on the list. I was, Dad said I'm going to medical school, and this is a joke that between us that we still live today. One day she told me that she wasn't going to wait for me to
What,
go
to go to med school?
to go through medical school. So I'm like, well, I guess I really don't have much of a choice. So I put my name on a list. I got called a couple of years later, and turns out what she meant was she wasn't going to wait for me to marry her
Oh,
to go to medical school till I got done with medical school. So I actually could have gone, but anyway, I didn't, and I'm actually happy that I didn't because I've had a great career. Really, really enjoy it. Came out in '93. I was like a 4th district reliever when I first came out. So I did a lot of running around. I spent my first 3 months on ambulance 23 with Jimmy Thorpe. Great guy. I learned a ton of shit from him. Learned how to treat people right. Learned how to have fun while you're working. And how not to take everything, home with you. He was there for 15 years or whatever since before I got there.
What a great guy.
Oh my God, he showed me. I mean,
Just the
and
best.
still to this day, I still hang out with him. We go out golfing, and he's still a great guy. And then I did a little relieving, out south and stuff like that. As a reliever, they would just send you everywhere
this is all as an FPM.
as an FBM, yeah. And so then I think it was 94 or 95 that we all went
Switch
to
shifts.
shifts. 94.
So, when you got on, it was
It was
24 on.
It was still a 3 platoon system.
Okay.
I was on a second shift, so I was always working with the same people, which was really, I thought at the time was great because you always knew the guys you were working with.
It was great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because you would walk, you'd get out of the ambulance and a company would show up or be around you or whatever, and you knew who they were. They knew who you were, and you kind of knew, they knew what to expect of you. You knew what to expect of them. Back then it was pretty much nothing, but they were there to help you if you needed it. But we never asked them to come, because then you had to live with that, So we just tried to, because back then there were no ambulance assist companies, there was no first responder companies, there was none of that going on. So it was just the ambulances by themselves, and engines and truck companies. They did firework, and they didn't mess with us unless we needed manpower help. Then we would call them, and they would come and help us out. So
the 2-man stretchers.
2-man stretchers, which were a son of a gun. I mean, yeah, it's thank God I have like a nice wide reach. I'd be working with all these little girls, and stuff, and I'd be like, hey, stand over there by the head, just hold your arms wherever you can, and I would like reach, I'd pop it, and we'd pop the stretcher down and let everybody out. But it was a lot of lifting. It was crazy.
Was that because they were busy? The fire companies were busier back then, or was it just?
Well, the fires. I think fires were more frequent, but the program
No.
wasn't started at the time.
No,
They didn't even have a program like that.
There was no ambulance assist program.
No.
You went out.
They had a first. What was it called? First responders.
I mean,
was that
for-
what they were called? Or they made
They
them
didn't
like
even do
BLS?
first responders until
What
like
was it?
1989 or something.
How far along was EMS when you guys were?
Horse-drawn carriages. Bring out your dad. It was kind of like that.
Yeah, my dad was a fireman and had a heart attack in '70 or something like that. Had one of the first cabbage operations, and they wouldn't put him back in a fire company, and so he sat in the bureau for a couple of years, and then Commissioner Joyce asked him if he wanted to go back on the 24 hours, and he said sure, and he said, doing what? He said, you'll be a supervisor of the ambulances. So he, like in 71, they gave him, he didn't even have a car. He drove his own car. They changed his, he was a captain EMS, and he drove his own car from firehouse to firehouse. He had no response duties. And he did that until like 74 or something like that. They finally got him a buggy. And then he died in 77. So it was, so when the Vietnam guys came back, that's kind of when it all started, the ALS stuff.
Was that the CETA program?
The CETA program started shortly thereafter, allowed them to educate up, and which again was kind of a joke.
But again, and like if you see like the trends in EMS, they're all pretty much based off of military medical treatments in the field. So after Vietnam, they're like, hey, this stuff worked out there. Why can't it work in the city proper? And so I can understand why that developed. But I mean, in the beginning, it was you only from what I heard, I wasn't there in the beginning, obviously, but from what I heard, they only took people that were on the street. They didn't go into people's homes.
Really?
Oh yeah, they wouldn't.
First, they were all for firemen.
Right.
Ambulances were just for firemen.
Just for firemen initially.
And then it was for civilians, but only on the street.
Only on the streets.
So nobody in a fire company back when you guys started were EMTs or anything?
No.
like
Oh my
that?
God, no.
No,
Okay.
none of them were. And if they were, I mean, there's like a couple guys that were like ex-medics, or whatever that went out and became firemen, but they
Nothing
were not
formal,
actively
though.
they weren't actively acting as medics on their fire. They didn't have any equipment.
And there was no one there when I started.
Yeah.
There was no medical.
Well, just so everybody
Expertise.
knows who's listening, now when you come on as a fireman, you have to complete your EMT training as part of a condition of employment. You can't, if you don't get through that EMT part, you can't continue on. You can't go to the Quinn from Fire Academy South if you don't.
That's EMTB even.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not like they're not even requiring you to be a medic.
Right.
Whereas a lot of suburbs, I mean,
They want you to be a medic,
They'll
obviously.
hire you, but with the stipulation that within a year or 2 years, whatever the time frame is for them, that you obtain a paramedic license. Otherwise, you're fired.
And there are suburbs out there still that you don't need your EMT.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to.
Because they'll have
I'm not
like a
gonna
rush.
name it, yeah,
They'll
I'm
have a
not
rush
gonna
of
name any
guys
town.
going
We'll
over
take
there
your
like,
word for
I
it.
want a job. I
yeah,
want a job.
Yeah,
no,
where
but
I'm
just
at.
for a conversation, Cicero, Harvey, places like that.
Yeah, but don't they have private companies like PSSI or whatever those
Correct,
guys are
but
that run their EMS for them?
the firefighters on the fire suppression don't need any medical training.
Well,
Maybe first responder.
Right. Where I'm at, actually, I think they just, I want to say this last list, they just require guys to be EMT starting.
Way to charge on.
Oh, yeah.
Move into the
they're-
future.
Had the curve
yeah,
there.
but
That's awesome,
started.
Corey.
But we do
So
have,
they have to be EMTs before they get hired.
before they get hired, correct?
Yeah, now that's even better. That's even more advanced than what the city of Chicago's doing.
Right.
The city of Chicago is willing to like train you for 3 months to be an EMT. They're not requiring you to be one before you come on, which is I think something you might see in the future, because I mean it's costing the city.
It's totally political.
Yeah, like you were saying,
But it's costing them. I mean, they're paying you for 3 months to learn how to be an EMT when you can go and take like a how many ever week course on your own and do it and come in already ready just to be trained as a fireman and go.
Well, if we really want to get into it,
We don't.
But three of my cousins are suburban firemen, and before you got on to the various places that they work at, you either had to be a full blown paramedic, you had to have your CPAT card, which was the physical agility test
Right.
that the IAFF backs and the IAFC and all these other organizations back. And my one cousin had his Fire 2 already, so they sent him to paramedic school, but he had his Fire 2 and the physical agility. And then my other cousin had to have his paramedic, his Fire 2 already, and the physical agility test just to sit for the test.
Wow.
Right, yeah. And
So you're
again,
really
like a
taking,
lot of
like,
these-
as a suburban fire chief, when you get that list, you're taking the best off that top of the list.
Absolutely,
The
yeah.
best of the 100 or whoever
Right.
tested.
Right.
right.
That simplifies it for everybody.
Yeah, and I mean to a point, it's I'm sure, fiscally responsible for these villages or cities or whatever, because like they don't have to spend the extra buck
Absolutely.
to send a guy to the academy or whatever. But I mean, I think what it lacks, like like maybe you guys had was you guys had a crew of guys you went through the academy with. You learned all the same stuff, the city way,
there's
or this is how
uniformity.
we do
Absolutely.
things. Yeah,
Absolutely.
And it wasn't like, well, I learned this and
Right.
where.
Yeah, you're all on the same page when you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy, where did you start? Like when you came out of the academy, where'd you go?
I went right to ambulance 38, actually, which was over by University of Chicago. But at the time there was 39 ambulances, so 38 was in the projects all the time. All the Dan Ryan projects were there, and 36 was never there. And
Right.
So it's same structure. You came on as an FPM, and who'd you work with when you came on?
I worked with I worked with the
experience?
great Jill Bullmash. Yeah, she was amazing.
Yeah,
She was the anti-Jim. I mean, we were polar opposites. She was this short little Jewish girl, like incredibly smart and just ridiculously hardworking and very caring and loving, and she was amazing. And you know how we talk about when you're gonna get an airway and you're gonna intubate somebody, you had 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Jill was always like, "Are you ready to try? Are you ready to try an intubation?" Because she was like ridiculous at it, phenomenal. And I'd say, "Yeah, I'm ready." And she goes, "Okay, you don't have 15, you have 10. 10 seconds. Then it's my airway. Get the hell out." And she was great. She taught me so much about being a medic. And I came out that like everybody else, a hot shot. We
Right.
thought we were, I was educated at University of Chicago, and it was all bullshit because she taught me so much about it.
how long was your academy?
Really?
Yeah.
5 days.
What about you, Danny?
3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 3 months long.
Well, ours was after the strike, so the
Yeah,
strike happened.
They had a
and-
need, and they had to get people out.
Yeah.
it was
probably right away.
It was a mess. It was a mess.
So tell me about those 5 days. What'd you do in 5 days down at the academy?
But you know what? We filled out paperwork,
Yeah.
and we got so there was 16 guys who had worked the street during the strike, and there was 13 of us who did not. Mary Sheridan and Tom Rowan, a handful of others, and one day the EMS coordinator comes in and she says, "Okay, all the people who have already been or who have never worked the strike, you guys sit over here, and all the people who have already been working the street, you guys sit over here." And
We're making
I-
you field chiefs.
and most of us and most of us were families of firemen, or like my family, we brought food to the guys on strike in our firehouse in the neighborhood, and Tom Rowan was the same, and his father and all this. So a few people yelled out when she said, "All you people have already been working the street over here," yelled out scabs and all this other stuff.
Within your class?
Within our class. And she threatened to fire us
something.
all right there on the spot. It was and
We'll have none of that.
That may have been part of the reason we're like, we got to get these people out of here,
Right. I think-
But the commissioner, Albrecht, called. I got pulled out of class, and Albrecht, he goes, "Yeah, I hear you. So you're Jim O'Connell's kid?" And I said, "Yes, sir." I'm looking sideways at him like, where's this coming from? And he said, "Yeah, well, I worked with your father when he was a fireman." He goes, "We didn't want to bring you in here during all this nonsense with the strike, and so that's why you're coming in now." And I was like, "Well, thanks very much. I mean, that was a cool thing to
no
do."
kidding.
And never really realizing until I got out in the street how wonderful a favor that is, because, man, at least in the area where I went to,
Oh, absolutely.
if you worked the strike, it was a terrible day for you every day
Really.
for a long time, for years.
Yeah.
It was a tough day.
So you took the promotion to PIC, and then where did you go?
I floated in the 6th district for a year. I sat on ambulance 50, one of everybody's favorites. And then I liked it so much.
Well, people get mandatory to that ambulance.
Right. In fact, I think I did too.
Oh, did you?
I spent a week there one day.
Yeah, because the guy I was working with was a crackhead, and And he got fired, thank God. But
like
I
training
got
day.
stuck with him. It was terrible. Like my field officer, Tom Murphy, was like, "Oh, Jimmy, they love you over there. Those guys, all those firemen, Frankie, all these guys, they love you. We're gonna keep you over there." And I'm like, "But I hate this guy I'm working with, man. I hate this guy.
outta
Get
here."
me the fuck out of here."
Can you do me a favor?
And it was so bad. That's when I put in for Amos 55, which was at 47's house,
That was where our last guest went. Jeff Rich.
Jeff Rich.
Yeah.
He was one of my guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was
See,
one of
it
my
comes full
guys.
circle. What about you, Danny? When you took the promotion, where'd you go?
They sent me to 44. Yeah, Ammo's 44, and I was there for probably about, I don't know, a couple of weeks. I just had a baby, second, and so I needed to get on an opposite. The old lady. Oh, excuse me, my wife, my lovely wife, was working.
Lovely wife, yes.
My lovely bride.
Hi, Margie.
My lovely bride was on the job, and she was on a fourth platoon. So I needed to get on a second platoon somewhere, and so a vacancy came out right away. And so I'm like, hey, I got to put in for something. She goes, yeah. It'd be
And you
nice.
were both PICs at the time?
Yeah,
Okay.
and so ambulance 10. I mean, I was on 10 when we went to the 4 platoon system. I was assigned to 10. I put in for it, and I got 10, of course.
You could have not put in for it
Yeah,
and got 10.
when you're at the bottom of the totem pole, that's where you get. But you know what? I liked it there. The guys, everybody that we worked with was great there. All the reliever, the PICs that I worked with, they all had the same attitude, and everybody we all had a lot of fun while we were working out there. You're getting your head kicked in every day, so you had to, find the fun in it, all the firemen were great. They're very supportive. We were out running all day long. If we were out and we missed dinner or whatever, they'd either leave it hot for you on a stove or they'd bring it to you if they had a run with you, and they'd meet you out there and they'd bring you your plates, so it was a great atmosphere. I felt comfortable there. And, so yeah, I put in for 10 and I got a chance to work with Patty Wood, which, we clicked right away and we were partners for 10 years. And then I crossed over.
You guys were partners for 10 years?
No, I'm sorry. 5 years. Excuse me.
Oh.
It just seemed like 10.
What was this about?
Sorry,
you
Patty.
guys?
Yeah, no, she knows.
What Corey?
What year was this about?
96, 97. So we were working together. She was just like a new FPM there, and she had no partner. So I put in for it. I called up and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to speak to the FPM. She answers the phone and I'm like, hi, I'm thinking about putting in for 10. She goes, why? I says, well, I was there before. I says, and I said, but I'm new baby and I need to be on an opposite shift. She's like, oh, okay, fine. So, and I actually had a student. Okay. I had a student with me the first day that I went there, and hey, Mark Smith, and Mark and I had been working. He had been my student for several months. For the summertime, and near the end of the summer is when I got a chance to go to 10. I transferred over. So he came with me the first day, and we went through the entire day. And at the end of the day, he asked Patty and I how long we'd been working together. And I said, I'm like, we just met. He goes, hey, that's crazy. He goes, you guys, you all got
that Mark.
Mark, the Scottish Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, with the brogue. And he's like, he goes, I thought you all worked together for about 25 years. And I'm like, yeah, well, it seemed like that, So yeah, we hung together for 5 years. I got the call for, to cross over as a fireman. And then I ditched it and went the other way. So, and I've been on that side ever since. It's been pretty good.
Okay. And how long have you been a lieutenant now?
Since 2015.
Okay.
So 4 years, and I've been at Truck 36 since then. So it's been a great opportunity for me. I'm loving it out there.
When we had Father Tom on here, we were talking about some of the memorable incidents within Chicago Fire Department in particular. Were either of you at E2?
No, I was not.
I saw that crazy
there
shit
the
on
next
TV
day.
though. I was like, damn, I'm glad I'm on this end. That was insane.
What position were you in during that?
I was a field officer, so I was 458, and my relief, Steve Fugai, was there.
Yeah. What did he say about it?
Yeah, it was one of those things he didn't talk too much about.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just said, Jimmy, it's just awful. Nothing you can say.
You wouldn't have believed it.
And if you talk to
You wouldn't have believed it if you didn't see it.
if you talk to anybody who was there, who was there like in the beginning, it's something they don't want to talk about.
Well,
It was-
and that says a lot because we talk to each other about
We do.
everything.
We do.
And to have something that we don't want to talk about, that's really telling.
yeah.
And I've been getting that reaction from a lot of people that we've kind of been like shopping that question around. So for people who aren't that familiar with the E2, it was a nightclub. I'm not
21st in Michigan.
21st in Michigan.
Yeah.
And there
Engine 19, truck 11, first there. Yeah.
something about somebody got maced originally, and then basically what happened is a stampede happened in this nightclub, and people couldn't get out of the front door, and they were stacked on top of each other. So there basically was a wall of bodies, and they couldn't get these people out from underneath the pile, and people were dying, and ambulances were showing up, and people were just being tossed into ambulances, and it was such, from the stories that I've heard, it was just like one of those unbelievable scenes. They couldn't manage it from
Correct.
the initial get go. Like it was unmanageable. And
Well, I believe the initial ambulance came for something
Shortness of breath.
completely,
Probably
yeah,
an or an asthma attack.
or shortness
Yeah.
of breath.
Yeah,
That's
asthma
what they
was
were
big on that one,
dispatched
yeah.
for, and then they're like, "What?"
anybody know who that may have been?
I think it
Peter
was, I think it
Peter
was
Lazara.
Pete Lazaro.
Oh, Pete was the first there? Really? No kidding.
I don't know if he was the first there, but I know he was one of the first arriving
Yeah.
units.
He intubated
and
the-
by the way, congratulations, Pete.
Congratulations.
You just retired
Oh.
yesterday.
Recently
Last day.
retired.
Just walked out.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He done.
Just walked out
He
yesterday.
gone.
Pete was one of Corey and I's
Yeah.
paramedic instructors. And what a great!
Isn't he great?
Oh, he is, and
One
what
of the
a
best teachers ever, too.
Right.
amazing teacher. And the funny thing, or not funny, but his background, he went to college. I believe he played college basketball,
Correct.
but he got a degree.
Not very well, he'll tell you.
But he taught, and I believe he taught at Gordon Tech. Right. Yeah. So he was a high school teacher, teaching boys, and then he got into the paramedic field, and then he's teaching a bunch of idiots like
Right.
Corey and I.
Right.
Yeah.
And it suited him.
Boys,
Oh,
just
man.
more of the
boys
same.
that can drink.
Yeah,
Just more of the same.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're just a little older now.
Yeah.
So, but man, what a great instructor! What a great teacher! What a
good man.
man,
Good man.
awesome dude.
So
awesome dude.
he kind of told you about it a little bit.
Yeah. So Pete, I know you're retired.
I actually just shot him a message.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, you know what? Going along with like some mass casualty stuff. Can I ask you guys? Were either of you guys around? I'm looking at some stuff. Looks like there was a big flood from the Chicago tunnel wall breach in like '92. Does that sound at all? Yeah.
They were throwing mattresses in
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
to try to stop the water.
That's an old
My-
World
my
War
fa-
II trick. Yeah.
My father-in-law was a water department supervisor, or sewers.
Oh.
I'm sorry, sewers.
He had his hands full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and did not like other people's
That
suggestions.
wasn't a big EMS event. That wasn't
No,
a big
not
fire
at all.
department
It
event.
was-
That was
yeah.
more. That was
Well,
more like
what's one of your most memorable events working,
Yeah.
Jimmy? You got any that come to mind?
well, I mean,
Good, bad, ugly? Like
Well, obviously, Corey Ankum and Eddie Stringer was as bad as it gets.
I was in the academy.
Yeah, I was there. I mean, you name it. I mean, I spent in fact, how I met Danny was I spent a summer doing all the special events for the city. Remember Danny? And this dude rides up on a bike and we start talking. And
So you did all the special events as a chief?
yeah, they
Yeah,
took
it was
me off the
459,
streets.
yeah.
Yeah, they took me off the street the whole summer. I worked every single special event at Grant Park. So everything from and
Days
all
of
the way
Chicago.
all the way through Venetian Night and the Air and Water Show. So and that's how I met Danny, and he was really in charge of or had a big hand in the bikes at the time, and so it was. We hit it off instantly, just like we did. So all those things, the 2 million people at at the 4th of July celebration. You know,
And
trying
then the
to
shooting.
and the
Yeah, the
shooting.
shooting there. Yeah, right.
Well, back in the day, it was 2 weeks. The Taste of Chicago.
Yeah,
right?
it was
Yeah,
a
it
long
was
time.
forever.
It was
yeah.
2 weeks because I remember when I first
Forever.
started doing the bikes, we would go down there 40 hours, and we'd ride all day. You know, it's always middle of July or end of June, beginning of July. Then you'd have time to go home. You know, you got to get there at 7. You're going home like you get home at midnight, 11 o'clock. Wash your stuff, grab something to eat, and then you're back. And you do that for 2 weeks, and it was a brutal grind.
And the shooting was after the fireworks show,
Right.
correct?
Yeah, it was right at Buckingham Fountain.
So,
it was insane.
We had one of our fellow classmates was riding on the ambulance that year.
Oh yeah.
How many people were
Yeah.
shot?
Just one.
This one?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, we had a stabbing there once right at Queens Landing, and we had an ambulance. We had the person crashing in the back of the ambulance right at Queens Landing, and there were so many people. It was the 3rd of July, and so all the people were going to the lakefront for the
We're all
fireworks.
walking across Lakeshore Drive.
They
Yeah,
couldn't move the ambulance.
Oh, no
The
shit.
patient died right in the ambulance.
Yeah.
And by the time they got enough police
Where
over
was
there,
he stabbed? Like
He
right
said,
as
at
the
Queen,
bat-
he said at Queen's Landing. He said,
Queens Landing, right in the Queen.
Well,
I was gonna make like a city traffic will kill you sort of joke, but that was way better than the dumb joke I was gonna make. What
what
Jim,
about you,
do-
Danny? Any what's memorable?
there's I had as far as like mass stuff.
No,
Yeah.
Anything.
Oh my God.
Anything.
I gotta.
it's called
there's a-
Chicago's Bravest Stories.
Shit, there's a whole
Lay
bunch.
one on us, Danny. Give us
There's a whole bunch. We got
take a big sip out of there.
Let's see.
and
All right,
think
hold
back.
on. Hold on. I can
Oh,
tell you a
boy.
couple. Hold on.
Here we go.
Let's get him a refill. Here, Danny.
So let's see.
Want more
By
ice?
the way, this is our first drinking podcast.
Want more ice?
No, that's fine. Thank
It's
you.
not
I'm
light
a
either.
neat drinker anyway.
Oh, did I fuck that up?
No, you didn't. It was actually
Chief,
very
Chief
good.
how you
It's
doing on
actually
that
very
beer?
I'm good.
good. All right, so let's see.
I'm retired. Stop it.
Gracias.
There's one time I was at I was a new PIC. So remember I was assigned to ambulance 44, and Dama Glennon was assigned there with Sarah Goose. So nobody got to work there because those girls didn't let anybody do anything. That was their place. They did their job. So I, being assigned there also as a PIC, got sent out. So it was New Year's Day, and I was working at ambulance 43 with Paulie Goodman, and who had been there forever, knew the streets, knew everything. He was a great medic, and he's a guy that I don't think ever you saw complain once or didn't have a smile on his face. He was always happy. So we get a call. It was a real quiet day, So we get this call like it was like a down from the unknown cause kind of thing. But they were what it had turned out to be was somebody called for they had a date to meet somebody for brunch that day, and they had made that date, way back in the year before, and so these people like went to the house and nobody was answering the door, so they're like, something's wrong, so they call for a fire company, to come in and do forced entry. They call for an ambulance just in case, and then the field chief came by with us too, because it was just kind of like unusual, Well, the fire company they put the aerial up to the second floor window. It was a townhouse on somewhere out there in Lincoln Park, and this guy, he's looking through a bedroom. And he can see like through another doorway into like this into the living room of this townhouse. He could see these two sets of legs on a laying on a couch. He goes, yeah, they're all black. He goes, I think this person's probably dead. She was like, dead or decomposing. I'm like, okay, now we know what we're dealing with, So they forced entry, went in. There's like a stack of mail all over, and we're met at the front door, right, by these two little dogs. These like little fuzzy dogs, with like little sweaters on and stuff. So we're going like, oh, look at little dogs. So we're like petting the dogs, and everything. We're going like, but you see like the stack of mail, and you're like, oh, this person's been dead for a while. So these friends, they like grab the dogs and they bring them in the car, and they're like hanging on to the dogs. So we're like walking through the house. Well, now as we're walking through the house, we're discovering that there's no water in the toilets, right? There's dog poop everywhere. And we're like going, uh-oh. I go, these dogs haven't been fed in a while. So we're like going, well, let's go upstairs. So we like go upstairs. We gotta go find our patient, right? So we walk up the stairs, and we're like walk up, and Paulie's like ahead of me, right? So now here's this couch. You walk up these stairs, you make a left turn, and there's like the living room. So there's this couch where the back of the couch is like facing you as you're walking towards these big windows. So Paulie like walks by the couch, and he turns around, and he's like, holy shit! He like jumps in the air, like honest to God, he would have, if he had claws, he would have been stuck to the ceiling. That's how high he jumped, right? And I'm like, Paulie, what's the matter? I lean over the back of the couch, and I look down. I'm like, holy moly! I go, check this lady out. So here she is, the owner of the two dogs. She's laying there on the couch. She's like buck naked, but she's like the color of my work shirt. She's like completely like blue. She had been there for a long time, and her dogs ate her face off. She had no face. It was just a skull with teeth and eyes, and just looked like rawhide, like around, like the dogs had chewed, you know.
And we laugh about shit like this.
I know, but it's like it was unbelievable, you know. So I'm like, damn. I go, those little dogs did this. I'm like, man, thank God she didn't have Rottweilers. I go, there'll be nothing left of that poor lady.
Those dogs are mean.
Oh yeah, I'm like,
I'm gonna go hit those dogs.
So we're like, you know, we do our paperwork, we do everything. I call it in. I'm like, yeah, you know, she's, you know, obviously DOA. You know, she doesn't have a face. They're like, excuse me? Yeah, her dogs ate her face off. They're like, what? They're like, this is on the radio, you know. So it's like, it was unbelievable. So we get done with all our stuff. We're like, yeah, you know, the friends wanted to come into the house. You know, we want to see her. I'm like, no, we can't let you in there. I go, this is not the way you want to remember your friend, you know. So we're exiting the building, and they're got the dogs in the car, and they're driving away. And as they're driving away, I go, don't fall asleep on the couch. That was an interesting run. And Paulie and I still talk about it today. It's every time I see him, he goes, you remember that run we had? I'm like, Paul, how can I ever forget that? I can't forget a run like that. You know, and it's, I mean.
Yeah, you had me at remember?
Yeah, I remember everything. Yeah, right. She, and so I was like interested in her situation, and like, you know, whatever. And like, so I actually, I'd never done this before, but I looked up her obituary in the paper like 3 days later. And then she had like this whole, like, you know, thing about how she was like, you know, involved with like, you know, anti-cruelty and stuff. And it was like in little flowers, you know, send a donation to anti-cruelty. I'm like, man, if anti-cruelty only knew what her dogs did.
Yeah, right.
I don't think those dogs are adoptable.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Got
Once you get a taste,
Right, they have they have the hunger now.
you're like stubbing your nose at the kibble, and they're like going at your ankles.
Jim, I'm supposed to ask you.
Uh-oh.
You want to get right into those?
This is going to be
let's
bad.
get right
Jimmy.
into it.
I mean,
This is going to be bad.
Well,
say you don't
before
remember. Say you don't
before we get
remember.
into that, real quick, Jim, I don't want to dwell on something but you just brought up earlier. Would you want to talk about anything about Acom and Stringer with that whole thing?
Sure.
You said you were there for that, or
Sure.
what do
Yeah.
you remember?
That was your
about
run,
that?
Jimmy?
Yeah, it was my run. I showed up to work at 5:30, my usual, at Engine 61 at Field Division South, and we had a fire right away, a plan at a fire in 51st in May or something. So we were squared away and ready to go, and we got right back to the firehouse, and we heard the first call come in from the battalion chief about I think it was about a collapse, and I was like, I told my partner Lisa Spring, let's go, and we just busted ass. And that was one of the days I started driving.
Started driving.
Yeah, I drove that goddamn buggy about 100 miles an hour. I was there like in 2 minutes or so.
Yeah.
76th and 75th and Stony, and
So for people who don't know, like, you're in a buggy, you have a paramedic who drives for you,
right.
and on this particular call, you decided to drive yourself.
Yeah, I just kind of,
The sense of urgency makes you, you know, I want to be in control. You jump in and you do your thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you know it as well as I do, then that's fine, But there was no way she knew that neighborhood. I worked in that neighborhood my whole life. From the time I was 17, I worked in.
I'm sure she
that
had no
neighborhood.
problem letting you drive to that run.
Yeah,
She had no choice.
How'd it come into you?
Pardon?
How did it come in?
Well, we heard it over the radio before it came in, so Bill Boyle always said, Bill was the chief of the South Side.
Always listen to the
and he
radio.
always said, you can't be in the game if you don't have the game on, guys.
That's right.
And so, it was just something we always did.
I love that. Is awesome.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
great.
that's a great
You
quote.
can't be in the game if you don't have the
That's a
game
great
on,
quote.
guys. And it was a thing of mine anyway. I was always listening to the radio. So we heard the collapse come in, and then so we just ran out. We ran out the door, and so it was, it was like they all are, completely uncontrolled, just chaotic, just an absolute mess. And I'll tell you what, though, you can say a lot of things about a lot of people, but there was a guy there that day who was the incident commander initially, and John McNicholas, and he did a fucking great job. He was absolutely in control. He gave concise, direct orders. He really did a fantastic job on that run. It was, and under the absolute worst circumstances you can imagine, there were friends of his under that roof, and it was he did it. I had a chance to tell him that a year or two ago, and he started crying. He said nobody's ever said that to me, and it was true. It was some of the best incident commanding stuff I've ever heard. So yeah, it was a
Mess.
yeah, it was a mess. But it was through it all, you give it a few minutes and everybody starts to get a handle on it, and we start figuring out what we have to do and where we have to go and where we have to assign people and then and that all gets done, and then the aftermath that's what gets everybody. That's what got my partner and me and so a handful of others, and it's just a devastating day. I'll never forget my friend John Hurley. He was on Truck 30, and that's where Eddie Stringer was a fireman for a long time, and so we're in the middle of all of this, and I'm walking down the front of the building, and John Hurley's walking at me, and John and I were on the ambulance together. We were next to each other for years on the ambulance, and now he's a fireman on that truck, and he had this look of just absolute horror on his face because he knew Eddie was in there, and I think he had helped get Eddie out of there. But the look on a dear friend of mine's face was just brought tears to my eyes. It was just a terrible moment. And then everybody, you talk about everybody who the complications with getting Eddie transported because the initial ambulance got stuck, got blocked in, so they had to take him out of the ambulance and put him in another ambulance, and the devastating effect that had on the personnel who had him initially in their ambulance, and
That was the winter time too. So
It was the winter time.
I mean, it was. There's
Yeah.
a lot of difficulties and a lot of stuff that you run into.
Yeah,
when
right.
the
There
weather's
was,
like
you're
that.
right. There was snow all over the
Yeah,
place,
and that's what brought the roof down. I think it was the extra weight from the snow and all, plus the rotted.
Yeah.
Joist members and.
It certainly
the
wasn't
truss roof.
fire. There wasn't a nickel's
No, there
worth
was.
of
There was a
fire.
nickel's worth of fire in there. Yeah,
It was just a building collapse.
right.
Yeah, yeah, no, like doing the old Vince move. It was a call in for a fire. Ended up after crews got in, there was a building collapse, and I think the eventual aftermath was 17 injured, and Akim and Stringer were killed. But like during the incident, I had to imagine that there were a lot more than just two guys that you guys were worried about at that time, right?
Oh, sure. We trained. In fact, I have the piece of paper. I have because I didn't work with clipboards. I had a notebook, a little 6x8 notebook in the pocket of my coat, and my fire coat, and it's still there. I still have it at home, and it's got all the guys' names and all what ambulance took them,
Jesus.
and I think we transported like 17 people there, but
Yeah, there were a lot of guys inside.
it was a great job. I mean, God bless Corey and Eddie, but the guys, and you see when you look at the pictures and you see the overhead
Right.
of all those firemen, peeling off those layers of roof to get to their brothers.
Cutting holes to get in there and stuff. Yeah.
It was amazing.
It made national news.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, I was watching it on television. I was at the firehouse that day when we were all, and I mean, everything in the fire, it's like during the day, like you have like your routine, you got to do this, you got to do that. But as soon as that happened, everything stopped.
Yeah.
Everybody was standing. It was a single engine house. I mean, it was like everybody just stood there around the television and we're just like watching, seeing what was going to happen. And we thought they were going to pull, way more than just two guys out of their dead. It looked like that's how it looked. They were just, I mean,
yeah, it was crazy.
The crowd of guys on top of that roof just ripping stuff off and cutting holes and trying to get in there. It seemed like anybody that was stuck in the center of the building, really, those are the guys that died. The guys that survived were the ones that were near the walls where things were still kind of supported. So everything kind of collapsed, kind of like, but it wasn't like a pancake, but it was kind of like a lean-to, like a double lean-to. And it was just, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, that they were able to save as many guys as they did.
Yeah, I went to Suburban Fire Academy, and there's a list of incidents that we go over, and unfortunately, a lot of them were Chicago incidents. But that was again, that was another big one where it was like, all right, like what can we take from this? Is there something? And I mean,
and we do that
too. Of course,
too.
hindsight's 20/20.
And we do that too after every major incident, or even after every fire that we have. We have a debriefing where we talk about what happened, how we could have made it, change things. Would it have changed the outcome? I mean, there's always that learning curve that you go through, with everything that you do. You could be on the job for freaking 45 years and you could still learn something, new from somebody, from, an incident. He's like, you're not always making the correct choice. I mean, you're making the right choice. It might not be book correct or whatever, but I mean, it works, and you're getting the job done, but there could have been a more efficient way to do it, and that's what you do. You take that time afterwards to learn a little bit, and then you take that with you to the next one that you're going to get, and you put it to use.
Well, here's like an interesting, Jimmy's at the fire, Danny's at the firehouse working. I'm in the academy when this happens. So I'm physically in classroom A. We all know where classroom A is. And one of the guys in my class, his father was on a truck that was there. And he doesn't know the instructor. Like, we're doing our regular bullshit stuff in the academy. And you kind of knew something was wrong because it was the period in time in the academy where your instructors are kind of jagoffs.
Yeah.
And it's just how things are. You go from that progression. But they came in and their demeanor had changed. They talked to our guy in our class whose father was there, and they're like, we don't know any details yet. We're just letting you know what's going on. And then, they came in there, they're like, there's reports somebody's injured, somebody's hurt. We don't know if it's your dad yet. And they just sat us in that classroom. We had to sit there. And now we all know what's going on. And we're just waiting for instructor to come in again.
Did they take him down there or anything?
No. We sat in that room while they waited to find out. And
really,
it's like they went and they were listening, and trying to find out if they should take this guy out or not. And then, then at one point they come in and they're like, your dad's okay. And then we just went back on to business as usual. But
back to normal.
Right.
yeah, right.
But
Okay,
then,
dickhead, do 100 push-ups.
That's right.
but
Hey, congratulations. Yeah. That's fine. Okay, now get a green
I'll
shirt.
tell you,
Yeah.
sitting in that classroom, waiting for the next instructor to come in, it's like, how am I going to look at,
Yeah. Say he gets the bad news.
right? Like, how
What do you
are we
do?
all supposed to deal with that? How are we supposed to take that?
Right.
Like, what are we supposed to do?
Here you're
I-
like all new guys, a bunch of new
Right.
guys all put together by the city for this one purpose.
Right.
You really don't know each other, but I mean, you've got to like gel quickly. I mean, it's
So
like working with a partner. Like you get some you go to work on some ambulance, you don't know the guy. You have to like develop a relationship quickly with them. so you can make the day go.
You're gonna know within the first couple minutes if you're gonna have a good day or you're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah, you are.
You know.
Yeah, but you can turn a bad day into a good day too, though. You know what? It's like it just takes that one certain run, that one certain thing to say.
I guess you're
can
right.
Change a guy
I
around,
guess you're
a
right.
little bit.
Sure.
But it's like if you try hard enough,
Feeling
you
each
can.
other out, like
Yeah,
how far
that's
can I
all.
go?
That's all.
You want to hear the Tony Ferenzi story? My
Yes.
first day with Tony Ferenzi. So we never worked with him before, and this was back in the day of pagers. So his pager keeps going off. It's his mom. So we go to the hospital. He calls his mom. Comes back out. Yeah, he's like, the goddamn faucet's leaking at my mom's house, and my asshole brother won't fix it. He's sleeping or something. Blah blah. And she pages him like 5 times, and this is the first day we ever worked together. So we're going out of University of Chicago, and we're heading west through the park, and he's going on and on about his mom. And I know he loves his mom, like everybody. But I just look at him and I go, what a he said, you can't say that. I know this is going to be cut, but he said,
gonna be
you
cut.
can't say that about my mom.
That's going to be cut.
And we've been best friends ever
That's
since.
unbelievable.
But it's one of those moments where you know right away that this guy's going to be be in my life for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, it just you can have just that one moment.
Don't you ever say that again about my mother.
It changes everything. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So sorry about that.
Oh, all while doing calls too.
All I'm doing, you know what he did? Then he tells everybody at the house, you know what he called my mother? You know what he called my mother?
He doesn't even know her.
I have no recollection of that conversation.
Sorry, he's mistaken.
I gotta tell you, many a well-planned ball bust completely destroyed by jagoff calls. They get in the way so often when you're trying to do shit.
Man, Steve, you got the bladder of a 3-year-old.
I broke
What
the
it-
seal.
Tiny tanks.
Actually, that was one thing I wanted to, Vince. I kind of want to start doing this thing with guys where it's like, all right, what's the best ball bust that you had at the firehouse? Like, what's the best prank someone pulled on someone?
Oh my
or,
God!
whatever,
So the guys that
I knew you'd have one
Right away,
Right away. Danny had one in the chamber.
So it was like I was a newer fireman, So I worked when I got out of the academy. They sent me to probably one of the slowest freaking engines in the city.
In the world.
Yeah, pretty much in the world. So and you knew you're at a bad place when your battalion chief comes up and goes, "Hey kid, nice to meet you. Do whatever you can to get the fuck out of here, like within a year's time, because you ain't gonna learn shit here." I'm going like, "Oh, okay, chief. Yeah, thanks a lot."
And you're in charge here, right?
Yeah, so I put in for all the details. So I would get the details over to 71. It was a single engine house. Guys were great there. We all got along. We had our fires and they were ALS, so we got a chance to to run our ALS calls. And it was sort of like close to my house. It was like it's my neighborhood company. So when I got the opportunity to put in for there, I put in for it. So my wife is Jewish. We live in a real heavy, it's a heavy Orthodox area, and they have like all these Jewish holidays, and it kind of helped to they said it helped to have me on the company because I was familiar with, the Jewish rules and things like that they
And now they have
that
Hatzalah.
do. Now they have Hatzalah, and Hatzalah kind of takes care of everything. But one Jewish holiday is called Purim. Purim is like the Jewish equivalent to Halloween. So the kids get together and they all dress up like Haman or all that, like the characters from not characters, but they're the historical characters like Mickey and Minnie. No, not quite.
No.
They're all like religious historical characters. From
Documented in a book.
It's in the Torah. And so they go from house to house and they get sweets and stuff. But part of it is that you make these thing called hamantash, and hamantash are cookies. They look like kolaczkis, but they're shaped in a triangle. So me and the kids, one day we made a bunch of hamantash, and so I go to the firehouse, and the guys are like, hey, what did you do yesterday? I go, oh yeah, it was Purim. So me and the kids, we made hamantash, and they're like, what the hell's that? Like, oh, these cookies and stuff. So all fucking day, right? They're all like going, they're like eating, or they're having like a cup of coffee. Hey, Chip, Mike Murphy. Hey, Chip, what would be really good with this cup of coffee? A Hamantash. Or we're driving along somewhere, a guy goes, man, he goes, yeah, I'm a little, he goes, God, my stomach's drowned. He goes, man, a couple of Hamantash would probably calm it down right away, And I'm going, oh, you fucking jackass. So I'm like, all right, I'll show you, right? Well, the next day I came in, and I came in with with a nice box of Hamantash, and I put them on the table. I said, here you guys go, eat away, right? Yeah, well, I brought 3 other boxes. So all their boots, all of the pockets in their coats, I put them in the visors on the rig. So when they pulled the visors down and they're pulling out, Hamantash would fall into their lap. Hamantash were in their beds. They were everywhere. So, they gave it to me a little bit, and I gave it right back to them. I thought that was my first one that I did.
Your first.
After that, it broke my cherry. After that, it was easy.
Your first Hamantash attack?
No, it was my first Hamantash attack.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
I'm just trying to figure out where our Hamantash is at.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know what would make this podcast great? You know what goes good with whiskey?
This
With Jam.
ice cold beer I have,
Anything.
Hamantash would go great with it.
There was an not significantly older, but older guy at work, and I've got friends from all over the place. I was talking to one of my buddies, and he was telling me, he's like, all right, man, like, so this is like the new word that the kids are using, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, what is it? He's like, it's YOLO, you only live once. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I would go back to the firehouse, tell the older guy, I'm like, all right, buddy, here's your urban word for the day is YOLO, and he's like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, it means you only live once. He's like, oh, okay. And so like for the rest of the day, that's all he said. Like he inserted into things that didn't even make. I'd be like, hey, Joey, your shoes are untied. He's like, YOLO. I don't know. I don't think that's how you use it, man. He's like, yeah, I like it. I'll hold on to it for a little bit.
Oh, that's awesome.
What about you, Jimmy?
Yeah,
What's
we
that?
got Jim.
Give me some pranks.
Best prank. Best.
Best.
Any memorable pranks?
What about my friend Jeff made the fatal mistake of leaving his lottery picks on the table.
These are great.
And he came back to the firehouse, and they were written on the chalkboard wall. The winning numbers, and they looked at it, and he quit. He left. Fuck you! I quit. He ran out of the firehouse. They had to go get him. And I'll never talk to you guys. I do sons of bitches.
He's yelling "fuck yous" to guys. He's like, I always wanted to tell you were a jag off. I wanted
awesome.
for 20 years. I want to tell you today's the day.
Fuck you. You're cool.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, hey, man,
I
it was
really
just a
didn't mean
joke.
it, guys.
I knew it was a joke. So Jimmy, you went on to become a flight medic?
I did. I was a flight
What
medic.
year was that?
I just retired from that about 17. So I don't know, 90 or something.
How'd you get into that?
And boy, his arms are tired.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it's more like 2000. Yeah. 2000.
I'm here all night, folks.
It was, there's a nurse at Mercy Hospital, Becky, then Pusateri, now Worth, who started working out there. Actually, there's a couple of medics who worked out there, Jim Barry, Rob Sasson, and they were working out there. And so I went out there and I worked with Becky and just had a fantastic second job there for 17 years. It was awesome.
What were your duties as a flight medic? Were you on fixed wing?
We were all fixed wing, all long range stuff. So we brought a lot of people to like Mayo Clinic for advanced treatments, or Cleveland Clinic for heart workup, UFC, Northwestern, for advanced treatments, and then people who have the vacation insurance and they get hurt on
Right.
while they're on cruise ships and stuff like that. We'd go get them. So it was a fantastic job. I traveled all over the world and got to see a bunch of great places, and worked with some amazing nurses, and learned just so much about it.
Any close calls?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I don't know.
Have another beer.
I could talk forever about that.
But I got one question. Is there a non-fixed wing plane somewhere?
A helicopter.
Yeah,
Oh,
helicopter.
I see what you're saying. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Come on, you Brown.
I'm thinking like, that's the Brown talking. No, I'm thinking like,
It's
a
hinged.
fixed wing. I'm going like, it's like flapping.
No,
I
it's
can just see like a plane flapping along. You're like, I ain't seen one of those.
It's like a cartoon.
Wait a minute, let me have another drink. Maybe I'll see one of those on the way home.
It's one of them goddamn
Right.
Da Vinci planes flying down.
Well, Jimmy
the hell are you
flew, he
talking
flew in the
about?
good ones with the fixed wings. Like you go to the shittier companies, the wings aren't as fixed as.
Yeah, they're a little looser.
They're
Right.
falling off. Yeah.
Yeah. That was my intent was initially to do that fixed wing stuff, and then once I got off the fire department to go work a helicopter in the mountains somewhere, but I quickly realized that those things, they just go down too often. The helicopters,
Yeah, they're not made to fly.
Yeah, they're not made to fly.
The physics
so.
behind it just doesn't.
And it was fine.
doesn't
I got
fly.
stuck. I worked with some, like I said, some great people. But yeah, we had some pretty hairy,
Like
calls.
like calls or like flights or
Flights.
Okay.
Like we had a guy in Florida. We went down to Florida to get a guy. Like, you have to go right now. So we got down there, and some 60-year-old guy is just breathing, just pumping 60 times a minute. Ate up all the oxygen in the ambulance before we even left the scene. And he was going to Canada. He was going to Toronto for a new set of lungs. He was a Canadian citizen. So he's like, I can't go to the hospital here. I have to go.
Yeah, it's
And
free.
he's just leaning on the wall, and we finally get him in the ambulance, and we're like running out of oxygen. I'm like, what are we gonna do? We don't have enough oxygen in the airplane to take this guy. Not at this rate. So I'm like, dude, we got to put you down. We can't even get you to the emergency room. We're talking, and so we're in consult with Becky and our medical control, and so we sedate him and put an airway in, throw him on the vent, and so we're like, okay, we're okay. His numbers are coming up. He's doing better now, and he's tolerating the vent and all this stuff, and they say, so okay, Jim, what do you want to do? And I go, I'm a fucking paramedic. I want to go to the closest hospital. That's what I want to do.
Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly.
What I don't want to do is go to Canada.
That's what I don't want to do is go to Canada. And they
We
go,
got a 3-minute trip I can take this guy on so I can get rid of him.
and they go, well, he's got lungs waiting in Toronto, and his family's all in the hospital waiting there for him. And I look at my partner, Kathy, and I look at her and I go, what do you think? And she goes,
I guess we're going to Canada.
I guess we're going to Canada. So we took the dude from somewhere in Florida to Canada, and he got his lungs.
Good for him, man.
But
That's
it was,
unbelievable.
yeah, that was, I mean,
Great decision.
3 hours of,
Great decision.
3 hours of, you hope your work was good.
No,
It was
did the
cool.
right thing. Yeah.
Very cool.
Did you ever have a long transport where you had to divert because you just like were in the process of losing somebody? Like it went south bad?
No. We've had a bunch of people. They usually deteriorate either on ascent or descent, and if you can manage that, the ascent or descent,
Because of the pressure
then you're
change.
okay.
you mean?
Yeah, the pressure
Yeah.
changes really has effect, especially on a compromised patient. Again, the nurses I work with were just like so on top of that stuff. They're just, if I could manage the vent, they'd take care of drips and all this other stuff. They were just phenomenal, and so we did have a lot of deterioration on those portions of the flights, but not to the point where we had to divert. Now, many of the people that I've worked with have had to divert.
Well,
So
I
it's
can't
not-
imagine being it's bad enough being in the back of an ambulance and like
Oh, yeah.
shit goes south, but because you can get to a hospital 3-4 minutes, but in a airplane,
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah, at 40,000 feet, even if you declare an emergency and you take priority over all airspace, aside from the president, you're still 30 minutes to the bottom, 30 minutes to the ground. But
I mean, we work with turbulence all the time on the streets.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
This is
Potholes.
just giving me great ideas though. Like towards the end, Jim, like just walking into a hospital, like I had trouble breathing. And they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" But I got lungs in Punta Cana. Like, I gotta get there, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Call. I need a jet.
Anyone, get
I
luxury
need a jet.
airliner, please.
I know this guy, Jim O'Connell.
Right. Hopefully open bar. I mean, whatever. You know,
Now I meet you,
business
Corey.
class,
Now I meet you,
minimum.
Corey.
that's what.
I could have done that for 17 years. Now I need
Oh
him.
God, this is. I'm a catalyst. What can I say?
No, just have him put you to sleep. You wake up in Punta Cana. You're
There you go.
That's it.
But there's some weird fluids on my pants. I'm not sure what's going on.
What about you, Danny? Any close calls as fireman?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you always remember. I think probably the hairiest situation I was ever in was probably my first fire.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Where were
always. I was on 71. It was, again, I have this thing about the first of the year, and it was we got a fire on Foster Avenue. It was just about a block east of the hospital, and this is a 1.5 story frame, and we pull up, and I see smoke billowing out of the top of the doorway. So you learn through time, which I learned now, which I didn't know then.
Were you on the pipe?
Yeah, I was on a pipe. So I'm leading out, and so when smoke's coming out of the top, just kind of like out of the top of the doorway, it's coming from a floor above. So once that floor fills up, then the first floor where the door is, the top of that doorway starts, the smoke starts leaking out. So I knew the fire was upstairs. So I let out. Of course, I let out to the wrong building the first time, because I really didn't know where the smoke was coming from. So I'm walking to this one building. I got all this hose on my shoulder. I'm going like, and all of a sudden, the hydrant guy goes, "It's this house." I'm going like, "Oh, okay." And I walk over there. I drop a bunch of hose on the ground, start leading out up the stairs. And it was kind of like an open floor plan on the second floor. But I got up, as soon as I got up like halfway through it, I'm stopped. So I threw my mask on because it was like smoke to the floor there. So I got the pipe in my hand, and I'm leading out up the stairs, and the top of the stairs was just like, it was like another open floor plan. So
You got nobody behind you?
there was nobody with me yet, because they were trying to string out the spaghetti that I left on the front porch.
So when you say you just dropped it,
That was my first fire.
You
I'm
just
telling you,
dropped it.
It was my first fire. Okay.
Well, that's serious.
So there was like 150 feet of 1 3/4 laying there in a ball, and I had like 50 feet up the steps. Right? And that's about where it went.
You can't think past that.
So I'm standing there, right? And I'm like, and at the time we had 30-minute bottles, so I had my tank on, so I'm skip breathing. I'm trying to try to conserve my air, and I'm waiting for water. Of course, I knew that I just dumped a shitload of
So
spaghetti.
you knew you were going to be there a while.
Yeah. I had dumped a shitload of spaghetti on the front steps, and they were spreading it all out till I got some water. So I finally get some water. So the officer, I feel the officer behind me. He's like, "All right, come on, let's go." I go, "Well, where are we going?" He goes, "Well, spray some water around in the area in front of you, and we'll listen, and I'll tell you where to go." So you're listening, and you can hear when a solid stream is hitting like a wall, it's a high pitched sound. But when it goes to like an open space, it dulls down. He goes, "Go this way." I go, "Where are we going?" He goes, "To the hallway." I go, "All right, makes sense." So we feel our way around. We go to this hallway, and now it's like getting hot and really shitty.
So he was right.
Oh no, of course he was right. He was on 71 for forever. He knew what he was doing. Ray DeJesus. "Ray, how's it going? How's Florida?" So Ray's behind me, and he's like going, "All right, come on, we got it. So I'm like inching my way down this hallway, and all of a sudden I was just like, "That's enough." Clip. I stuck one leg out on one side of the hallway, pushed against the wall, and I had my back against the other side, and I wasn't moving anywhere. I wasn't going. And he goes, come on, let's go. I go, it's fucking hot over there. I'm not moving. He goes, we got to get over there. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, man. This is stupid. I'm like, I never had this on the ambulance, man. You know? So it's like, come on. Well, all of a sudden I hear a guy running, like behind me. So he comes from behind me. He knocks my helmet off, right? He runs past me, all right? And there's like a brief second, and all of a sudden I hear him like running really fast back past me and goes, man, it's hot over there. And I go like, yeah, there's a fire over there, man. You know? Well, finally, like Ray got me loosened up and he like inched me in. We found the fire, started hitting it. Well, then I go on bells, which means I got like 1,000 pounds left on my tank. And it didn't take me long to go through that. And next thing I know, I got like the mask stuck to my face and I'm not getting any air. So I'm like, I got to get out of here, you know? So I like work my way back down the line, get outside, change tanks out and I come back in and it was like all gone. You know, it was like they had opened the roof already, you know, and everything was nice and clear. They gave me the pipe back because I was, you know, new on the pipe. And they knew it was my first fire. And so I got there to sit there and wash down and be la, you know, but it was, that was probably the hairiest I'd ever been in. Yeah, and everything else after that was, after every fire, you learn a little bit more and you feel a little bit more comfortable, but not so comfortable that you're stupid. You know, you still respect it and you still know that shit can go wrong, but you're not like making stupid judgment calls. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're making educated judgments. You know,
like being on a truck better?
Oh man, there's nothing like being on a pipe. That's a great feeling. There's nobody in front of you. After that fire, being on a pipe was fun. You're crawling in, you're finding it, you're the first guy there, you're hitting it. There's nobody in front of you until you start throwing water on it. Then guys start moving in, opening windows, pulling sealing, doing all that stuff like that. That's really, really cool. But I tell you what, the freedom of being on a truck, nothing like it. You get to spread out, do your thing. We're doing searches and stuff. I mean, making a roof. I'm on truck 32 and I'm standing, it's like in the middle of winter time and I'm walking a ridge on a 4.5 story frame overlooking, looking out over the city and seeing the sky, the landscape of the city and stuff. And I'm looking at it going I go, man, this is a fucking great job. I go, there's got to be 1,000 guys that would love to do what I'm doing right now. You know, and of course you got to go to work, you know, and you're doing your thing. But I mean, that was probably the scariest moment I ever had. Because it was the first one, you know. And after that, everything was okay. It was cool.
Cheers, Jimmy.
All right, salute.
I'm sorry, guys. Was I talking too much?
No.
Was I taking too much time?
Give Danny a beer.
Dang, there's a
We're out of
beautiful
whiskey.
story. Jimmy was just admiring how well told it was.
He was teary-eyed.
I've heard it. I could have told him myself. We go fishing together.
This is the second time tonight he's told this. Yeah.
Hey,
so
you only have your first fire once, man.
yeah,
Come
for
on.
sure.
YOLO.
It's like your first
YOLO.
Hey, boys,
YOLO.
You know what? I got a question for you from my side, Danny. So I started off as a medic. I was never trained as a fireman until I got my current job as a firefighter.
Pretend like you've been on a podcast before, Corey.
Hi, I'm Corey.
Rookie.
So I had been a medic for a couple of years, and when I became a fireman, obviously this day and age, there's a lot more. I mean, maybe not obviously, but it seems like things are now very EMS dependent. So even as a fireman on my engine, I'm still very active with EMS. And did you ever feel? So I think I'm coming up on. I was a single role paramedic for, I want to say 4 years, and then I became a fireman and firefighter EMT where I'm at. And I've been there almost 8 now. Did you feel at a certain time from your changeover from like I've hit this many years as a fireman more than being a medic or past being a medic? Did you ever feel like, oh, now I'm a fireman now, or do you always kind of feel like no. I started off as a paramedic?
I've always been a medic first.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You've always been on an ALS company, haven't you?
Always been on the ALS company. I've always been the medic.
Have you?
Yeah, until
You're
I
the
became an
doc.
officer. And when I first became an officer, they used me as a medic all the time. And then I was when I got Truck 36, I had 3 medics on my company that were assigned, and me, and they kept putting my medics out, and they kept detailing my medics out and using me as the medic. And I was catching all these fires and stuff. And so, being asshole firemen, we would always like take pictures of ourselves at these fires, with giving our guys the finger because they're not there. They're missing out on a fire. And after a while, I was like, man, that's pretty stupid because these guys are like young. Mm-hmm. They're eventually going to be officers one day. They should be getting this fire experience too, not just this EMS experience that they're getting working on other companies as a medic. And so I stepped down as a paramedic and went down to EMT so that I could always have my medic guys working on our company so they could get their experience. But now as an EMT, I feel like I'm doing more paramedic work,
Which is better.
Right, it is. Because I'm doing the fun stuff. Yeah. I'm doing the patient contact. I'm doing like the IVs, the intubation, all this stuff like that as the medic, being the official medic on the rig, I wasn't going to get a chance to do because I had to do all this paperwork and stuff, and I was allowing other guys to do that stuff. And that's actually the part of being a medic that I enjoyed the most was the patient contact. I'm a curious prick. I like to I ask questions. I want to know everything about you, and so I was always a good history taker because I wasn't afraid to ask you anything. And that allowed me to get to know my patient, gave me the opportunity to kind of put a whole bunch of stuff together to kind of figure out what was going on with them, to determine whether it was something real or just bullshit, and that's the part that I was missing as the guy who was just doing the paperwork. Now I get to do that. I get to throw out the questions. And now I got my medic who just sits there and writes all the stuff down, takes care of all of that. I get to do all the patient contact, touching people and stuff. To me, that was always important as a medic. I always put a hand on somebody, always. And for me, that was kind of like,
whether they want to or not, right?
Well,
no. Wait, that's
right.
I
always had their parents' permission.
Oh, okay, all right.
So, but it was always important to like just put a hand on his shoulder or go, hey, I got you. Don't worry. If I'm running around looking crazy, not knowing what to do, you should worry. But right now, everything's under control. On
a side note, we were when that spot was open, the vacancy was open. I was talking to Danny about putting in for the truck because he and I had become friends and I knew what a great shift he was going to, the second shift with Paulie and all those guys.
Good people.
And I'm like, you really, if you're looking for a spot, that's a good spot. You should come here. It's a great house. And I had like 3 of the guys come to me and they go, hey, I hear we're getting this bombing guy. I hear this bombing guy's talking about coming in. We don't need another goddamn paramedic over here and all this. And I go, guys, listen, just trust me. You're going to fucking love them. You're just going to love them.
But it's a legitimate concern when you have an officer come in and he's a paramedic because
For
these
sure.
guys know they're going out.
Absolutely.
And as a lieutenant, the city shouldn't be using you as a paramedic whether you got the license or not.
ridiculous.
It does make your job a little more difficult. I mean, your job primarily is the safety of your company. But when you're sitting there in the middle of the street focused on a patient, it's hard to like look around and make sure like traffic's being diverted. You have the police, support there. People aren't like, approaching you from the outside or inside. Roles. It's tough. It is tough.
And in your situation, I mean, you did a solid thing for your guys, and I came from the same house. Those guys really appreciate you dropping, but
they still haven't paid for my meals though.
Yeah.
Cheap pricks.
Yeah.
Paul Keller. You're in this Paul Keller.
Paulie be the first one to jump on it and pay. I'm talking about the other guys.
But they kind of now that the city lost another medic.
Right.
Because they put you in that situation and you dropped.
Yeah, but they lost a medic per se, but they gained a medic. Because now I'm like, I think our company, because I'm an EMT, we have another medic guy that dropped down to EMT. Between Harry and I, the quality of care we give people is outstanding. I believe it's outstanding.
But
just because.
But that's not the norm. I mean,
no, it's not.
That's
No, it's not. But
That's a credit to you, but it's
but
not.
for us,
the system
No.
is flawed.
absolutely, because they're I
When
mean,
good medics have to
and
drop.
what's really flawed is that a lot of the guys who are the single medic on a company only have a couple of years on. You know, they had a couple of years on the ambulance, and now they're in charge of like an entire scene, and they've got like, you know, 4 other guys. You got to tell them what to do. That doesn't
burden.
work.
Yeah.
You know, I was lucky. I had 8.5 years on. I was a PIC or paramedic in charge. You know, when I crossed over, and controlling a scene wasn't something that was unusual for me. You know, I always did that. I was always the first in the door, and just like I am today, I'm always the first in the door and the last to leave. And that was my way of ensuring that the scene was going to be handled the way I felt comfortable. You know, whether it was because I don't like change or I don't whatever, but it was just it was my little bit of crazy, yeah, maybe. You know, everybody's got that, but it always seemed to work.
Oh, you mean like the plate and the sponge?
Okay, all right. We're gonna go there now.
Yeah, let's go there.
No,
We're
not.
going right
That's
there.
vacation. That's off the job. We're here talking about job stuff.
Well, speak of that relationship, how'd you guys get to know each other?
Yeah, by
We
accident.
literally.
We were thrown together, actually.
Yeah, we worked the
Blue was it a blues Gospel Fest was the first time
It
we
was
we
the
met
first
each other.
time it was Gospel Fest.
Yeah,
That was
it
one
at
of
the
the first
Pritzker
ones of the
Pavilion.
year.
Yeah,
Right.
when it first opened.
And Danny was on the bikes, and I was in charge, and we just started talking. You know, it was obviously initially it was professional about how we're going to run things and how does Danny want to run his bikes, and I'm a firm believer that if it's running good, leave it alone. You know, and I knew right away that Danny had it and how he wanted to run it, just like Vince does. You know,
Yeah, my protege.
and you when you
The reason why we
Not
had to take a
quite.
summer vacation.
yeah,
Because Vince had to go
Exactly.
ride.
Yeah.
exactly.
I like bikes.
So
He likes bike shorts.
Exercising. Vince likes exercising.
Man, this took a turn.
yeah, that
Tight
was-
shirts, tight
Everyone's
shorts.
getting hit. Everyone's getting hit
can't
on
like
this podcast. Listen, I asked Jim a question, right? Can we stay focused here?
okay.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
So-
I'm trying to
quick,
plug
quick.
PSP Academy.
What was that? PSP Academy, you said?
Oh, man.
Bikers are weird. Just
What's
for the
the
record.
what was the address on that place?
Hey, Vince, how can we get a whole PSP Academy?
Well, before we get into that,
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right.
ironically enough, since you guys brought up the conversation about sponsorship, we do have a sponsor for today's podcast.
Beautiful.
We
Hey, Vince, where are we drinking at?
we all went there to eat and have a couple drinks the other day, right? Dakota 94 at 5304 West Devon. It's actually one of our gym members who is one of his other restaurants is Canella's. You guys ever eat at Canella's?
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. He's
Really?
Yeah. And so he opened up one in
It's a lot closer to the house.
Sauganash.
Right, in Sauganash,
Yeah, and the food is amazing.
It's
Yeah.
great. And in fact, I had been there with my wife and my son, who was 18 months old. And we had breakfast there. And the waiter couldn't have been like, he couldn't have been better with having this obnoxious little kid at the restaurant serving him pancakes.
Takes after the wife.
And your son was
Yeah.
there too.
I got served a breakfast burrito. It was probably one of the best things I've ever had. But couldn't have been better.
Not one bite he took. Just
But no.
gag that thing down.
For real though, like
Thrown in it the whole time.
But then you had a bison burger the other day.
that bison burger.
Danny, they got
I-
a bison burger.
No way, really?
Yeah.
It's
I'm
probably one of
going.
the best things I've ever
I'm
had.
going there.
Cheese sauce with the onions, cooked medium.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wednesdays
Couple
is
beers to
half
wash
off
down.
for first responders.
Wednesdays?
Wednesdays.
What are we doing here?
We'll be going to 5304 West Devon.
Absolutely.
Next Wednesday.
Hope you're open.
Dakota 94, Dakota94.com. But yeah, I mean, it's they did such a good job with Canella's. My buddy Pete went off on his own, opened that one. They live right in the neighborhood, so
Nice.
they're vested in that restaurant.
Good
That's
deal.
great.
Good deal.
They do a really good job over
We'll
there.
be there. We'll be there.
So
Maybe tonight.
Do they have liquor there?
they
They
have
do.
amazing
They
liquor
do.
there.
Full
Sweet.
bar.
Amazing liquor, full
Sweet.
bar, and whatever you plan on drinking on Wednesdays will be now half off.
All right.
What?
Well,
The Brown Clown will be in
speaking of
town.
full bar, I'm supposed to ask a question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we also got to plug the Stash Bash for Miss
absolutely.
Yokas.
Oh, we're doing
That's
that
a
now.
good one.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a
all
good
right,
one.
So, let me. I'm already working on mine. Our
You are?
Yeah, our first podcast.
Oh, I thought
I
there
got
was just
ja-
some
I
dirt
got-
on your lip.
Is that a mustache?
Yeah, I
Oh,
got
wow.
jagged off a little bit on our first podcast.
Put a little
about
milk
the
on that, have the
mustache.
cat lick it
but,
off. It'll be
at
fine.
least Jeff Rich backed me up a little bit.
Yeah.
On it. So,
That's 'cause
anyways,
it was his first podcast too.
couple really good friends of mine, Jenny Yokas, Mike Manchester. They run the Stash Bash. It's Chicago Fire Department charity for prostate cancer. It is a mustache contest for everybody out there. They're having it on November 24th, Sunday, at Old Crow at 3506 North Clark. It's been going on for several years.
Yeah. I'd say.
And let me tell you what, hell of a party.
It's a good time.
It is a hell of a party.
It's the party of the year
It really is.
Did you go? Did you go last year, Jimmy?
every year.
Yeah.
Even when I'm working.
Even the mustacheless are
I used to show
welcome.
up there working all the time.
I mean,
I didn't give a shit. What are you going to do? You fire me?
Go ahead.
I'm the boss of the North Side.
I'm going to quit anyway.
Stick it in your ass.
but yeah, it is great.
It's a great party.
Jenny throws awesome parties.
You know Jenny
for-
crossed over?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's at
Yeah.
18 now.
I saw her.
right?
I
Yes.
saw her. I saw
Engine
the
18,
pictures and
yeah.
stuff.
Good
Had I
for
known,
her.
I would have gone. She's one
Great,
of the best.
great gal.
Yeah,
Great gal.
awesome. She throws fantastic parties, multiple parties throughout the year. But Stash Bash is truly the party of the year.
It is.
It really is. It's a bunch of creepy firemen
Yeah.
With creepy mustaches.
with
mustache-
creepy
with-
mustaches.
With 1970s porno
Yes.
mustaches.
Oh, yeah, and it's hilarious. Guys dress up in costume.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great. Everybody gets together. They have a good time. They're raising money for a good cause.
Did we make
So-
fun of McLaughlin for
Oh, yeah.
looking like Freddie Mercury?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
Did we?
But then
He owned
Alex.
it. He owned it.
Did he own it?
He
Yes,
owned it.
but then Alex Casillas actually had the Freddie Mercury
Outfit?
costume
Outfit? Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, and killed it. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It was great.
So,
For the record, I'm not doing a mustache this year, so you don't have to have a mustache to go to the Stash
Yes, the
Bash.
mustacheless are welcome.
I had one last year, and I had this overwhelming urge to go buy a white van and fill it with candy, and so I'm not doing it again this year.
But,
It was
yeah.
horrible. It was horrible.
I pasted one on one year. It was a good mustache.
But if you're gonna grow a mustache for Movember,
Yeah.
the Stash Bash is the place to be. Take your award, what you think might be your award-winning mustache, over to the Stash Bash. Again, November 24th, Sunday, Old Crow, 3506 North Clark.
Can you start that mustache now, or can you only start it on the 1st of
Well,
November?
you know what?
You're cheating. You
Don't
mean.
cheat.
You are cheating. He is kind of cheating, right?
Don't be a cheater.
Steve, you can cheat because that's right
Yeah.
there.
That's
really
some
not.
fake
That's a
ass.
shadow.
Yeah.
Right now.
I mean, it's only like a week old, so
That's a week
So
old.
you're cheating already. You're admitting.
yeah.
Shh. Okay, so he's,
Listen, if
he's,
you're not
he's out of the
cheat-
he's out of the
Chief.
contest. He's
Chief.
not. He's
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. All right.
Oh, there you go. It's an old
This
Grimmy.
thing is disgusting to look at.
It's terrible.
I'm uncomfortable.
there's
sitting
one
next to him.
part. My wife hates it, and we talked about this in the first podcast. Can't stand it. There's one point in my lip; it's bi-directional, like it's growing places in different directions. It's horrible, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, they're nasty.
I gotta make my mark somehow.
Ugh, that's it, huh?
That's where we went, huh? Jimmy, your sister works for the FBI or retired from the FBI,
Right.
and my whole interest in podcasts came about when you and I were talking, and she had a podcast that she was involved in, that I started listening to on, ironically enough, on our way to Chimo in Canada, where we went fishing and
Yeah.
caught a bunch of walleye, and So
The place where God lives.
Yeah.
amazing fishing trip, and so I mean, your father was on the job. Any other relations that? So
Yeah, my father died on our doorstep in '77. So he got a duty death after he working whatever 48 at the firehouse. He came home, died on the doorstep. My uncle Danny was a fireman in Engine 50, and he died at a fire on 54th and Federal. And my sister Eileen, a paramedic. She did 20 something years, had a heart attack, and she's now retired. And then, well, there's like 6 kids, and we call 5 of them. We're all at the trough. My brother Mike is fireman on truck 26 out in
27.
Roseland. 27, 62 and
I know
truck
him.
27.
I know him better than you do.
No, you don't.
No, I don't. Never
No,
met
you
him.
don't. Yeah, 62 and truck 27, and he's just he's a stud. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. And Eileen too. And then Susie was a police officer. She died of cancer. And Kathy, ironically, where you're talking about Father Tom, Kathy sings all the masses for the fire department, and anything that Father Tom does, and they need music, my sister Kathy does all the singing for her. So
did you ever think about crossing over?
I did back in the like middle '80s. They were talking about it, but I was in a bad way. I was in a bad place from even myself, and I was in a bad house. I was in a house that just didn't like us as medics, and one day this friend of my father's was a fireman with my dad said, "Hey Jim, you gonna cross over? You gonna take that test?" And I looked at him, and there I was around the kitchen table, and I said, "I wouldn't be one of you guys for all the money in the fucking world." Because they were just jerks, man. They were just, we were running our asses off.
You ran into miserable people that
Yeah,
just spread the
you do.
misery around. Yeah.
So in fact, I transferred out. I went to a busier house. I went to Ambulance 36 because it was such a fantastic place. But you'd go out and you'd go out at 7:30 in the morning. You'd come back at 2:00 in the afternoon, and there'd be no lunch for you. And they'd say, "Oh yeah, by the way, Jim, we pulled watches. You got third watch." And we were the only, and my partner Jill, she got second watch. So they even gave the officers watches in this house. It was just terrible.
Well, it's a testament to how far we've come. That that for me, I've been privileged to be with really good houses.
Oh, yeah.
And really good guys. And I think a lot has to do with a lot of the medics now are on the fire side are crossovers.
They remember.
Yeah.
And it's I do feel privileged to work in this era where we got guys that were actually looking out for us and taking care of. You talk about like bringing your lunch out to you and stuff like that. How many times have we done a flyby where you guys
Right.
brought it out to us?
Right.
Yeah.
We'll be
I think we're just more indoctrinated into this two-tiered almost environment, the EMS and fire. And it was different my like we go back to my dad. He said he came home one day when he was first starting, when they put him back on shift, he decided, I'm going to go to EMT school, see what these kids are going through. And he came back and he told my mom one day, he goes, "These kids are going to have a hell of a time ever being accepted in this firehouse."
Right.
And that was 1971 or something like that. So it's gone so far, and so not, now it's business. It's what we do.
Right.
It's part of us, and I think the camaraderie has caught up with that. I think that the great guys have always been there.
But
They've
I
always
think the
been.
camaraderie comes from everybody being on the same scene together.
Yeah.
And
Because
you're
the breaking up the shifts is the worst thing that ever happened.
No, I thought
to
that
us.
was terrible.
It was terrible.
That was the worst thing the city ever decided to do.
it would be
because when you-
nice to be with the same guys every time.
When you work with the same guys every day, you know what to expect. They know what to expect, and you work like a well-oiled machine. That's something I really miss.
Yeah, me too.
From from the 3-platoon system.
I voted
Yeah.
against it, even though it
Oh,
was,
so did I.
greatly.
So did I.
it benefited me, but I
Well,
voted against it.
what was the antithesis for changing? Why?
It was the overtime issue.
Money.
Yeah,
It
It
all
was the
boils down to
overtime
money,
issue for
brother.
paramedics.
FLSA.
is that what it was?
That's what it was.
So in I think it was Washington, the state of Washington, some group of paramedics on some department
it
applied
Cleveland
for
or
a
something
benefit.
like that?
No, I think it was Washington,
Was
but
it
I could be
Washington?
wrong. I could be wrong. They applied for a benefit that was typically given to firemen and police, and the ruling came back: no, you don't get this benefit because you're not fire or police. The medics then came back and filed this FLSA lawsuit saying if we don't
It was because they
match-
didn't do enough hours or something like
Oh, no.
right. It had to
well,
do
if
with
we
the
don't
hours.
meet, they said if we don't meet that criteria as fire or police, then we want overtime
Right. For the hours we work.
for all our hours because fire and police do not get overtime if they work over 40 hours.
Right.
So
So we were 48 plus.
So that's why we get the FSLA now.
right.
FLSA,
Because we
Right.
weren't included
Right.
in that.
Right.
correct.
And now we're like down to like 42 point something. The EMS is like down to 42 point something hours
Right.
or whatever it is.
Because we were at,
because he went to the 30.
Yeah,
The,
we-
the
I mean-
4-platoon system.
trust me, it was an unbelievable, it was an absolute windfall when they paid that check.
Wow.
It was,
In
Uh huh.
really.
Oh yeah.
it was, yeah.
Big time.
Wow.
It was a crazy amount of money, and so they
But
knew
we
they had
had
to change their
it was
shifts.
voted on by the members.
Yes.
It was voted on by the members. Yeah.
But
It was
but
a
it wasn't voted on
negotiated
it wasn't voted on just by EMS members. It was everybody.
Right, the whole contract.
The whole contract.
The whole right.
You
Yeah,
know?
it's weird because if I see you guys coming in the morning, I'm like, okay, I'm going to work with Danny next day.
Right.
You know, I gotta do math. But I see you.
You're
You
right.
know, and I'm like, oh shit,
I know.
I'm coming in and I see you leaving. I'm like,
same
shit, I
with us.
don't
We're
see
like
Danny
going,
for fucking.
We're like, oh shit, Jingles is coming in tomorrow. I'm like, God damn it, next day we're gonna work with Jingles. I'm like, oh man, you know, we're gonna have a long day. You know, it's like, and it's weird. It really is. You know, but you know, we made the adjustment like everybody else, and you just, you know, I think your personal reputation is enough to carry you through, you know, so every shift that you work with, if they see you or know you're coming in, they know what to expect, you know, and you
Good,
so
bad.
so you kind of, yeah, exactly. So you kind of make the bed you sleep in. So how you're treated or how whatever you're approached or accepted in the house, it's up to you. You know, how you run and whatever you do. Because, I mean, all you need is one company on the west side to be slow. Screws up everything. You know?
It's
And 99% of the time, you know who that company is when
Sure you do.
when you're out there.
Everybody does. Yeah.
You know? And I mean, some people just don't give a shit. You know, but I mean, I remember when I was on the ambulance, I never wanted to have a reputation like that. I wanted to be, when I walked in the door, the guys would know we're good. You know, we're not going to be, you know, dragging ass all night long because they can't carry somebody or whatever. I remember like a ton of times asking Patty, we got a big lady, we got 3 flights of stairs. You want me to call a company? She goes, fuck no. She goes, I'm not going to sit there and listen to them tell me I'm a girl and blah, blah, this and that, and I can't do my job. I'm like, all right, girl, let's go. You know, I get on the bottom. She was, the bottom of the stair chair. She's on the top of the stair chair. And we go down the stairs. Sorry, babe. You know, and we carry them down 4 feet of snow. We're like carrying them through snow. Like we did not want to bother our companies. And that made us, I mean, we felt welcome in the house because of that. Yeah.
so Jimmy has a boss. What's like a go-to piece of advice for future bosses out there?
Oh,
like
man.
what
Don't micromanage.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That's not Jimmy. That's Dan talking. And I learned that a long time ago from other chiefs, you know, and I try to take that to my company too. Don't micromanage people. If it's working, don't fuck with it. Right?
Thanks, Jim.
and it was.
How about it shut the fuck up now?
I'll have a glass of that if there's
Jesus Christ.
some around, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I think that, you know, like I said earlier, if you're going to, especially in a big place like this, we're going to come upon a lot of big incidents, you know, a lot of really shitty situations. And you're going to have young kids and who shouldn't be placed in that environment, who shouldn't have that thrust upon them. And you're going to see them, and you're going to and you're going to look at him and you're going, he's got it. He knows what he's doing. Let him be. And one of my things has always been, if you got it, you have it. And I'll stand right next to you and I'll help you. I'll suggest, because that's what Mark Levison did to me. That's what Bill Boyle did to me. That's what Cliff Boyce did to me, the best chiefs that I have ever worked with, you know. That's what Ray Roscoe did. And so when you see somebody and they're grasping a really shitty situation, you know, and so you give them whatever help they need, you let them run. And then be there for them at the end to say, man, that was an awesome job. That was an awesome job. And then down the road say, you know what, maybe, you know, if you had some suggestions, go, hey, let's, you know, you and me have a little conversation about this. You know, the other thing is, as a boss, as an EMS boss, and what I always try to tell the chiefs is that, you know, yeah, you're a paramedic, and yeah, they put the shiny bugles on your collar and all that other stuff. But you're going to drive up on that scene, and you're going to start telling this Vince how to treat a patient, and then you're going to go on your merry way and go back to your firehouse and have your nice hot dinner. And he's going to stay out there in the streets, and he's going to stay out there, and he's going to keep getting his ass kicked, but he's going to keep helping patients, and he's going to be caring, and he's going to work his ass off, and he's going to do what he's supposed to do. Don't tell him how to take a patient to the hospital. Just because they put bugles on your collar, that doesn't mean you know more than Vince does about how to take somebody to the hospital.
The Vince is a hypothetical name.
Right, right. Like Ray Roscoe said, man, if people dial 911, they never called for some asshole with bugles on his collar to show up. They want that guy in the blue shirt, that girl with the blue shirt.
It's going to go to work.
Coming in and
Absolutely.
to take care of their family member. And it's so true, man. Just don't believe the hype. You know, you're absolutely blessed to have the job that you have now. You know, your job is now. You have 10 ambulances today. Your job is to allow those 10 ambulances to have the best day they can have. However, you have to do that. You know, if they have to get a meal in the middle of the day, if they have to get a shower in the middle, you know what I mean. Whatever it is, if somebody puked on them and now they can't get back to the firehouse, and that's what you're there for. You know, and when they have that horrific run that none of us ever want to see, we know how I mean, how many thousands of phone calls have I heard about a kid or a parent or somebody, you know, that's what you're there for. You're there to help them get through that and help them to not be devastated for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can sit here. I don't think you and I would have been friends had it not been like, I was just blown away by, you know, here you are, you know, you're my boss's boss. And I was able to talk to you just like you were sitting next to me in the rig.
Yeah.
You know, and it's comforting to know that I don't have to be afraid of, you know, messing up or whatever. If I did something, you know, if I messed something up, I could go to you and be like, you know, Chief, this went bad.
Yeah.
And you and I can talk.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't afraid to bring anything to you.
Yeah. You know, when I realized it is when I went north. Because when I went south, or when I was south, everybody knew me. You know, I was there. I was on the ambulance there as a field officer there, and I got promoted there, you know. But when I came north, nobody knew me. Everybody was looking at me like, who's this asshole? You know, with this starch white shirt on and all that stuff, you know. And
flip flops.
And where did I go? You know, I go to the west side. I go to 44, and you know, it's the heart of the West Side where all these kids are working so hard every single day. And I made a couple of friends, and I was just like, listen, this is the deal. If you step in shit, come here. If you get in trouble, come here. We'll figure it out. Well, you know, you may have to take a hit. You may have to take, you may have to take a hammer, and I'll be the one giving you that hammer. But if you step in shit, come here, and we'll talk about it. We'll figure it out, and we'll do what's right. And it was because I was able to come into a new situation. It was cool to be able to express that when you step in shit, come here. This is not your. I'm not the enemy. We're not the enemy. Because I remember, man, I remember firemen at 75th and Kingston, a fireman throwing a smoldering child into my arms like it was a softball because he couldn't wait to get that child out of his hands. I mean, and the devastating effect that has on you as a medic, as a person, you're fortunate enough to go home in the morning and see your child, to see your kid in a cradle. And I remember the devastating effect that this job can have on all of us. And I don't know why that is. I just do. It just, I was really lucky that way.
The best bosses don't forget where they came from. They don't forget.
How do you handle your new guys that come to you?
Oh, just where I'm at, I just make sure everybody knows their job, and I just do mine, and that's it. So everything kind of just happens around me. That's it.
The one thing that I ask,
it's hands off.
one thing that I've been asking all of our guests is day one or in the academy, on day one on the job, whatever it may be, if you could tell a new firefighter something, whatever it may be, and it doesn't even have to be a Chicago firefighter, just a firefighter anywhere in the country, what would you tell them to make them more successful or whatever it may be?
Put your head on a swivel.
I was going to say, open your eyes,
Yes.
man.
Put
It's
your
an
head on a
awesome
swivel
job.
and see what needs to be done. And if you see something that needs to be done, do it. Don't ask somebody if it needs to be done. If you see it needs to be done, just do it. And nobody will ever say, "Hey, why'd you do that?" People would get like, they would go, "Hey, thanks for doing that for me. Appreciate it." Because if you see it and if you see it as something that needs to be taken care of, somebody else does too. And sometimes the way the fire department is, guys will wait to see if you see it. And if you don't see it, well, then you're gonna wear it for a long time. But if you see it right away, take care of it, and they'll be like, "Well, this guy's got it. He knows what this is about." That's exactly what I think. I think if you see something that needs to be done, just get down there and do it, no matter what it is.
You talk about dishes, right?
And day one,
The
Dishes, toilets, anything.
the important
Set
stuff.
the
There's gonna be-
table.
there's gonna be plenty of guys
scrub
doing that.
out, wash the rig. Check out your rig. Make sure all your stuff works. It's like nothing worse than going to work. I've heard stories and I've talked to guys and they're like, "Oh yeah, I do my inventory at 8:00 in the morning." I'm like, so what do you do? So let's see, you get in at 6. I go, what do you do for 2 hours?
I work out.
Yeah. I put on my makeup. It's like, you're like, hey, listen, I go, what if you get a run at 6:05? How do you know your stuff is going to work for you? How do you know your SCBA is going to be it's going to be spot on and you're going to have enough air to get yourself through a fire? How do you know? You don't know. You got to do this stuff right away. Make sure you're ready to go. Because you never know when that bell's going to go off and you got to go someplace and do something.
and same thing, Jimmy, you got a group of aspiring
Chief.
paramedic chief. Sorry.
No, you get.
Fuck off.
Steve's getting the finger.
Fuck off. Jeremy, getting this fuck off, everybody.
Just so everyone knows, Jim said I had to call him chief for the tourney.
No, that's such a bunch of bullshit.
That's
I love
because
that.
Corey.
Awesome.
That's because Corey was fucking late. He didn't bring any beer. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Italian
Yeah,
guy.
you know
did-
what? All right,
the
all right.
guy
So the
that-
question, Steve.
Hey, wait on the Italian guys now. Hold on a
Yeah.
minute.
Oh.
Hey, yo. Hey,
showed up late,
yo.
didn't bring anything.
a question in here somewhere? Or what?
No,
Who's
you,
got a?
you got a group of aspiring paramedics or day one on the job paramedics. What are you gonna say to them? Not as the boss, but just as another paramedic.
Yeah, you know what I like, and it was again, it was counter to what they were probably told in the academy. Is I would say, listen, see that rocker on your collar there, or on your shoulder. See underneath there it says paramedic. Now you're going to work with some people who are going to make decisions that you might not agree with, and I'd say you're a paramedic just like they are. Hold true to that.
Absolutely.
You have to be a paramedic, and you can't allow other people to make bad decisions that are going to hurt a patient. And I know it's hard, and that's also part of my speech is that I know it's hard. I know it's hard to go up against an officer, especially a
hard.
strong-spirited officer.
It is hard.
But you are a paramedic, and in the state's eye, you're a paramedic, and you need to have some nuts and say, listen, what you're doing here is wrong. We can't do that. But nobody teaches that. But
Because
it's
when
the
it comes
truth.
down to it, you're both accountable.
You're both accountable.
Absolutely.
And the whole thing is, I mean, it's so convoluted to me anyway, because we discount the credibility of a brand new paramedic, you know. And you bring a military medic in here who's got more training
Jesus. Yeah.
than
Yeah. Absolutely.
anybody on the street.
He's doing shit that you never did.
Right, and you want him to kiss your ass because I'm a PIC. Because I signed my name on a list,
right.
6 months ago because I didn't like working with Danny anymore.
But
So
what
now
did you
I'm an
do before
officer.
you get on the job?
Nobody nobody
a
ever liked
corpsman-
not
I was a
working with
corpsman in
Danny.
Iraq and Afghanistan. Oh well, you should get some time on. Like,
Exactly.
Get the fuck
Yeah,
out
right,
of
exactly.
Exactly. You know, like our when our guys so the generation before me came back from Vietnam, so they were all kind of getting ready to retire and stuff when I was coming on, or when I was young, and they got treated like shit when they came out of the fire department. They had to go all new training. They got none of that stuff mattered what they did in Vietnam.
We had a guy that we're still friends with. In fact, he's a lieutenant in the suburbs, and a nurse, but he was an Army medic, and he had to go through paramedic school all over again.
Crazy.
All over again. And the guy is probably one of the smartest people.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, no, me and Steve are, we're drunken dickhead 20-year-olds, and we're like, what'd you do last weekend? Oh, this.
Yeah.
And we'd be talking to this guy. He'd be like, yeah, man, so I still got a ringing in my ear from the last time I got blown up, and 3 of my buddies died. And we're like,
Yeah.
so are we going out tonight?
We're drinking tonight, right? Like, what?
But yeah, absolutely. You guys doing chest tubes in a
Digital
fucking desert in
innovation.
Iraq.
I mean, it's like,
and we're,
they're working without the tools that we've got, but they're able to do the same job.
Right,
It's incredible.
and you're absolutely right, because when I came on, we didn't have QRBs. Well, we had some sort of bag system thing.
You had the tackle box.
Nobody carried it. We all had military green, like shoulder packs and stuff, and we just stuffed with whatever you thought was
Whatever
cool.
you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but whatever
You'd have-
whatever
you'd
you
have
figure you
Narcan,
needed.
D50, whatever could make you help you walk a patient down to the ambulance.
That's right. You have to carry the motherfucker. Like,
Airway,
whatever you got a
breathing.
mobile.
Can you walk to the ambulance? All right.
Maybe 2 OB clamps, and you use your knife, and then you come on. Let's
All
go.
right, all right. Pull your pants up. We're walking down the stairs.
Jeremy, we're going to have to scratch this.
Totally true.
Don't you dare, Jeremy. Don't you dare scratch that. That's gold, baby.
That's the truth.
So, any last words?
Wait
Well,
a minute.
I was supposed to ask you a question.
What time is it? It's last
No,
words.
No. Go ahead. So start firing them off.
All right. Chief, I heard you enjoy picnics where there's no food, but there is an abundance of sangria.
Oh, yeah.
Who asked that question?
First of all, can you figure out who asked the question?
Yes,
was
of
it?
course
Yes.
I can.
And this is, can you confirm that this is a truthful statement?
It's a totally truthful statement. I brought the sangria, and Katie forgot all the picnic foods. Yeah. We went to a concert, and she was like, "I forgot all the food." I'm like, "Well, here's all the sangria," and they all got hammered. Yeah, I remember that.
A bunch of young, aspiring paramedics.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Katie's
sure they were.
Katie's a PSP
Yes.
stalwart.
Brad?
Stalwart, yeah.
Yeah,
What else?
in the alarm
it,
office.
Did you want to? Oh, that was her question. That's right. What you want to tell the firewood story? We kind of went into that story before these guys showed up, but I think it's worth
Oh,
mentioning.
hey, hold on.
It's a good tavern story.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
Yeah.
So a friend, so I'm working with this guy.
Name names.
This
Name
guy.
names.
So Billy was just a great guy. He didn't last on the fire department too long. He's kind of a troubled soul, but he was a great guy and a great partner. We had so much fun together. So anyway, he had this place up in Wisconsin, and he shows up at my firehouse one day on 38, and he says, I got to get some firewood. I'm going up to the cottage tomorrow. I got a bonfire. I'm like, well, the city chops up all the trees and stores them and slices them up into firewood at 71st and Dorchester. So he's like, we got to go over there and fill this fucking thing up. So sure enough, we go over to 71st and Dorchester, and he buys all this firewood, and we proceed to fill the ambulance completely from the floor almost to the ceiling in the back. And then, being that, you're working in the inner city, and, you're busy and all this stuff, sure enough, we get a call as soon as we get that thing filled up with firewood. And it's not just a short of breath or anything, it's a freaking stabbing, and it's right down the street. So off we go. And we get this guy stabbed in the chest or wherever he stabbed, and I'm like, now what are we gonna do, Bill? And he's like, well, we got to treat our patient, so we give him the IV and all that stuff, so 5 minutes later we roll into University of Chicago, the trauma center, and the center, blah blah blah, and every especially then everybody was scared to death of University of Chicago, and we go rolling in there, and my partner's nowhere to be found, but the patient's sitting in the passenger seat holding on to his IV. As we roll into so then I jump out real quick like I care, and I go run inside, grab a stretcher. And we put him. I put the poor guy in. The nurses, we put the guy in the stretcher, and they're like, "Where's Bill? Where the hell's Bill?" And finally, as we're rolling the guy in, I open the back doors of the ambulance, and there's Bill laying on top of the stack of wood with nothing but his face sticking out of the very top of the doors, because the whole freaking ambulance is filled with firewood. And he just waves. He's waving at the nurse. He's like, "Hi."
He's got sawdust over his
It was
chest.
great. He said he had a good bonfire, though.
I'm
I
sure
bet.
it did.
I bet it was
Oh,
worth
my
it.
gosh. Yeah, it was worth it. Yeah.
What else you got on there? Those were the two?
That's it.
All right. Did you have fun?
Nobody has questions for me.
I think we asked you 1,000 questions.
Yeah, but
Dan, what color's your underwear?
I think it's blue.
But I gotta tell you, I don't know what it is because I'm not wearing it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Salud.
Really
was
appreciate it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cheers,
Absolutely.
Dan. Thanks for
Yes.
coming.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It was really
Be
great,
safe
guys.
out there, brothers.
Thanks very much.
Thank
bless
you,
you.
boys. Hey guys, if you're a first responder or you know a first responder that has a story to tell, we'd love to hear it. Please reach out to us at Chicago's Bravest Stories on Facebook or Instagram.
We'd also like to thank the Missing Chums for their musical contribution to the podcast with the song Yes You May.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. You can download this episode on iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and TuneIn. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, it's Steve here. I'd like to talk to you about another awesome company that helps bring the podcast to you free of charge. Chicagoland CPR. It's a first responder owned and operated CPR company. As a first responder myself, I can't express to you enough how important CPR training is for everybody in the community. They offer real customizable world-class education for all their clients. They have a combined 30 plus years of field experience as fire service and EMS educators throughout the Chicagoland area. Chicagoland CPR is extremely focused on providing real-world, no-fluff education, and the main focus is on organization, an engaged classroom, working with students to completely understand the material, getting your certificates out on time, and most importantly, coming to your facility. They offer a wide variety of American Heart Association classes, CPR, First Aid, AED, ACLS, PALS, and a full complement of StarGuard Elite, Lifeguard, and aquatic safety classes. Our clients include nursing homes, hospitals, long-term care facilities, fire departments, schools, park districts, coaching staff, and many other groups throughout the communities. If you're interested in hosting a class at your facility for your employees, or you have any questions about services and pricing, contact Chicagoland CPR. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, the World Wide Web. I can't express to you, again, how important CPR and first aid training is. They want to hear from you soon. Give them a call, find them. Let's set you up a class to help save some lives.
Also sponsored by Chicagoland Event Medical Services, we are a first responder owned and operated first aid and emergency medical service provider. Our mission is to protect the lives and well-being of event patrons all over the state of Illinois by providing professional and experienced career EMS practitioners in an event setting. Our services are completely customizable to the needs of our customers. Our business was born out of a necessity to provide competent health care providers to both large and small events. We do this by bringing firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, nurses, lifeguards, first aid tents. We also customize your own site safety and emergency response plan, and that information will always be available to your staff. We pride ourselves on providing the best patient care possible to your events.